Hello everyone and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday the 6th of March 2023. It's Gary here again and well, another week goes past in this, what would you call it, not so brilliant season for us with the news that, this will shock you, an injury update that Tom Lawrence is out for the remainder of the season and will also miss pretty much most of pre-season if everything goes to plan for him. So he's looking to be fit and ready to start pre-season training at the end of pre-season training, if you know what I mean. Of course, that was way longer than any of us thought it was going to be. And just as a wee reminder, it came from a nothing thug challenge at the end of a routine 4-0 victory against St Johnstone way back in the day, the early part of the season. So annoying. And so annoying when it comes to the good players, you know. And I've heard it joked that it's never the bad ones that get injured, and it is a shame for him definitely, and more so for the first team, for us as well, as he was a genuine game changer, and it's something that we've sorely missed. I just don't think we've actually replaced that this season, and where we've just had the most. I mean, it always feels like we've got injuries and injury challenges not to seek sort of thing, but this season feels like just a wee bit more than normal and a wee bit more kind of bizarre injuries than normal as well. So not great news for Tom, and I'd like to pass on our sincere commiserations to him for that, and then wish him a speedy recovery, and hopefully he gets everything he needs to come back and do that, because I have to say, quite honestly, I wasn't hugely convinced in the beginning, and then the guy just hit stride and came on to a really good game, was taking shots from outside the box and linking up play, you know, coming deep and doing a whole bunch of really impressive things for the team. So hell of a shame for him, and as I mentioned, a hell of a shame for us, but onward and upward we march, and I guess you just never know how the season's going to pan out from here on in. So onto the game segment for this week, and one game this past week, and it was the, what would you say, relatively comfortable 3-1 home win against Kilmarnock this past Saturday, where we started like an absolute house on fire, and then we had that all too familiar dip in the second half, but we did enough, of course, to see the game out, and I don't think we were really in any genuine danger of losing it. However, you know, that's not the point, sort of. And anyway, the goals came from Connor Goldson, Fashion Sakala, and a penalty from Captain James Tavernier as well. In summary, we started great, as I said, and put in a really solid first half against, you know, admittedly, let's be honest, not a great Kilmarnock team. They're at the bottom of the league table for a reason, and they're a Derek McInnes side, so that tells you all you really need to know about them and what type and style of game they were going to try and drag us into. The first goal came from some real tenacity from Todd Cantwell. You know, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of Lawrence, for us, you know, we do have a game changer now, I think, in Todd Cantwell. So I'll caveat that with that, where in this particular passage of play, has the two shots, one blocked and one saved, and then it fell to Connor Goldson, who was basically in the box where Tony Goals should have been, to sweep it in like he was Tony Goals. Well, certainly Tony Goals from earlier in the season. So it was a great goal, a really good finish, and nice to see the kind of never give up, never say die attitude from Cantwell there as well. Then Fashion Sakala had two great chances to score. The first one he shot when he should have squared it to Tony Goals. It was, you know, all day long he should have squared it. And then the second one, honestly, if you've seen this one, I've seen it a bunch of times. I have literally no clue how he could have missed that one. Genuinely one of those ones where it was more difficult to miss it than it was to score, and he manages to put it past the post. So bizarre. I have no idea. The physical science was defied with that one. And then the third chance comes his way, and he gets a goal, I think, after, what was it, 2 deflections? You know, he made the space for himself in the box after kind of missing out on the first ball in, and I think it looked like it took 2 deflections on the way in, but you know, what's that? That's basically what we get from Fashion, I guess, isn't it? And the third goal was a penalty, and I think the penalty was for handball, that Willie Collum needed VAR to help confirm, and then he did confirm that that's what it was. But I have to say, I've seen it a few times, and I wasn't convinced, and I genuinely wear royal blue tinted glasses, not literally, but you know what I mean. And I just didn't see it, but Tony Goals was right next to him and gestured right away, and I think that's a bit of a sign, you know, when you have that sort of gesture from the player closest, and Tony Goals is not a liar or a cheat or anything like that. And there didn't seem to be too many protests, sorry, from the actual culprit either. So a penalty it is, and Tav dispatches it with aplomb. Those types of styles of penalty, when he puts it high and into one of the top corners, typically it seems to be on the left corner as he's looking at it. There's no saving those. He's just absolutely world class at those. Brilliant penalty. Then, as I mentioned earlier, we do a regular dip where we decide, and I'll say decide in inverted commas, to drop a gear or two to allow Kelly a bit of a sniff in the game. And we actually should have lost a goal before we did, and then we did lose a goal, and their goal was just an absolute mess, and one that I'm sure recent Hall of Famer Alan McGregor won't really want to see again. You know, we complain that the guy doesn't come out, and then he does come out and just completely makes an absolute hash of it, and the boy just slots it home. He actually looked like an old man the way that he came out, and I know that he's getting up there in terms of professional athlete age and stuff like that, but he certainly didn't cover himself in glory with that one. And we did, towards the end of the game, we did pick it back up a wee bit, and then we had a Ryan Jack goal rightly disallowed for offside. But overall, as I mentioned, I don't think the result was ever in doubt. It's just that the second half wasn't as intense or entertaining as the first half, quite honestly. And so, positives, of course, the result, getting more minutes in Tony Goals as a starter. I think that's his first start in a couple of months, something like that. Todd Cantwell and Nicholas Raskin impressing again, just to compound the bafflement that they didn't start the game at Hampden the weekend before. And it was really great seeing John Suter continue his recovery and getting more minutes, and the same also with Yanis Hadji as well. So, and it was confirmed today that there was no more subsequent injuries, because the press conference for the Hibs game on Wednesday was today, and Michael Beale had confirmed that there's no more other injuries as well. So, assuming that there's no breakdown from John Suter and Yanis Hadji as a result of those minutes, then that's a good place to be in. I mentioned Tom Lawrence at the beginning. I didn't mention Kamar Roof, but it looks like possibly his season might be done as well. The poor fella, it just cannot catch a break, and his body just doesn't seem up to the rigours of being a professional athlete, I'm afraid, which is really too bad, because when he is on form, he is one of, if not the best striker in Scotland, bar none. And I mean that. I mean, the guy is absolute gold dust. He's just kind of made of less than stern stuff, I'm afraid. Negatives from the game, the second half dip was just dung balls, wasn't it? It's just awful. It's so frustrating and annoying when it happens. And I know, like, I really need to be clear about this. I know that the team doesn't mean to do this, but come on, it's happening way too often not to be in some way, either intentionally or unintentionally or consciously or subconsciously, coached into the team. I'm not saying that we're doing it, you know, to try and sabotage the team. It's either it's coached into them by some series of mistakes that's happening, or that's just what the team does, that they're just at that spot where that's all they can do. They can't sustain it for 90 minutes against any team, and we're going to have to just put up with the fact that it could be a half and a half or a 20-minute spell of bad play or whatever. But the weird thing is, it's the whole team. It's not just where you say, for example, Tav switches off for 20 minutes of every game, or you know, Ryan Jack does the same or anything like that. It just seems to be like this collective dip that the team goes on, which is frustrating and bizarre and obviously pointless. I mean, again, they're not trying to do it, but when it's happening time after time after time after time, there's genuinely definitely something to that. You know, if you can get away with 2 or 3 players doing that, where the others can take the mantle from them for that period of time while they're taking a breather or just kind of getting a second wind or whatever it is they're doing, convalescing in some way. But when it's basically the entire team and it's like they just met each other and they can hardly string a pass or 2 together, I just don't get it. And it takes away the enjoyment from the game. You know, I mean, if it was reversed and the second half was the first half, and then we finished the game like we did in the first half, then the fans go away happy, but then we go away a wee bit on a downer, quite honestly, you know. So anywho, from a stats perspective, we had 73% possession, 14 shots to their 3. It was men against boys in every sense of the word, and as I said earlier, you know, very well worthy of the result in and of itself. The referee watch, you know, Willie Collum did what Willie Collum does. He's just all over the place, isn't he? You know, and if you watch if you just watch the highlights, you know, which I didn't get to see the game live first off. And if you watch the highlights, he only features on the highlights for the VAR situation and not a whole hell of a lot more. But then if you watch the whole game, it really just genuinely looks like he's watching from the best vantage point you can possibly have on a football game, but he's watching a different game to the rest of us. That's what it feels like. That said, he did what he had to do for the VAR assisted penalty, and he did a good job there. And other than that, he dished out just three bookings, one for us, two for them. But some of the decisions he made in game, it's frustrating for the players, it's frustrating for the fans. You just have no idea. A player gets up, you know, maybe possibly expecting a yellow card for a tackle, and then lo and behold, he gets the free kick. Like, just, I don't know. Talk about switching off. Willie Collum does that as a masterclass. So, I mean, anyway, all that said, he's going to get 7 out of 10 for his efforts for this one. So what does that mean? Well, with 11 games to go, and at the current clip, the pending Old Firm games are obviously going to be crucial to determining when the East End Mob will wrap up the title, because that's most likely what's going to happen, save for some catastrophic, colossal dip in form, which just does not seem to be coming. And when the gap really opened up and it didn't look like closing, my first thought was at least take it beyond the split, you know, the split that we get for the last 5 games of the season. And at the current rate, it looks like we'll do just that. So I do keep hoping and anticipating a blip from them. And then yesterday you could see, you know, they're 1-0 down against St Mirren, but then St Mirren get a straight red card, and then you know kind of what's coming, and then they just come out and just blast them away in the second half. So the blip just isn't coming, is it? You know, I think we're kind of clutching at straws here. We've got 11 games to try and make up 9 points and about 814 goals. So I don't know. The positives are, of course, that Michael Beale has matched them point for point since he arrived back at the club, and with a squad that is definitely in need of refreshing, and he's obviously started that process with the 2 new signings in January. And we're also going through a horrendous injury time of it as well. You know, the squad is broken, if I could use that kind of terminology. Wee bit galling, you know, because we could and should have won the Old Firm game at Ibrox, but we didn't. And then we did get what we deserved last weekend with a dismal showing in the League Cup final. I just really wish we'd just get some luck and squeeze out a result, you know, maybe that we don't even deserve against that mob, but it just doesn't seem to work like that in sport, does it? You know, you just have to pay your dues. You have to kind of just climb back up from where you are. A bit of a drop from where we were in 55, but there's other reasons for that was kind of part of a bit of a Union Bears demonstration or banner waving on the weekend there, just in terms of the board taking their eye, or the club taking their eye off the ball after 55, getting complacent, and we're playing catch up again. So anywho, 2 games this week, one in the league, one in the Scottish Cup. The first one is away to Hibs at Easter Road on Wednesday the 8th of March, and that's a 2:45 Eastern Standard Time kick-off. That's 12:45 in the UK. And the last time we played them was a 3-2 win at Ibrox in mid-December, with goals from Sakala, Jack and Morelos. And then we did have a 2-2 draw back in later, I think late August. It was quite close to the beginning of the season, where we had goals from James Tavernier and Tom Lawrence, remember that guy? And then we conceded a last minute equaliser. And I remember, I don't remember the specifics of that game, but I remember being upset because we conceded so late to lose the 3 points. But I remember thinking we were rotten that day. That's my abiding memory, and I can't even remember why. And we would have stolen the points at that point if we had got them. So we always got a difficult game at Easter Road. They always come out to do us in. So something similar the last time we were in Edinburgh would be pretty okay for me as well. Our second game is at home in the Scottish Cup to Wraith Rovers this Sunday on March the 12th, and that's I think it's a noon Eastern Standard Time kick-off. No, that can't be right, because it's 1 PM in the UK. I think, no, it can't be that. It must be 9 AM. My apologies, I've got my notes all wrong here. But 9 AM because it's 7 AM in Calgary here. And I think it's that because although it's a 1 PM UK kickoff time, the clocks change. So we're 1 hour less behind, if you know what I mean. It would typically be 6 AM in Calgary, which would be 8 AM in in the eastern region, but this time it's going to be 9 AM as well. So wee bit of an early one, not too bad on that. For RTV, just another reminder that we get all the league and cup games this season under the RTV package, so there's no specific login or any need to get a new code or anything like that. And just the usual warning, I didn't hear anything. We had one wee blip in terms of the turnaround time for the Vancouver Downtown boys and girls, but we got that organised pretty quickly after they contacted us. But if you need to test your system before the game, remember you can do it on any device from anywhere. You just need the login details for your RTV account. You don't need to wait till you get to the pub or club. For shout-outs for this week, firstly, I was contacted, I think it was early last week, I think it was, on Twitter from a fella who was asking if we would be willing to be part of a podcast that he has, which is going to be on the Heart and Hand network. And this podcast in particular is going to be chronicling the career of the late great Sammy Cox. So now, I'm certain that there are more bears over here in North America that would be way more learned about Mr. Cox than me. So the purpose of this shout out is an open call to all blue noses over here to get in touch with me, and then I can pass on your details to the fella and then see where we can take it. I'm not 100% sure what the ask is, whether they're asking just for content or collateral or asking for someone to go and participate. But I'm sure they would be okay with both. If you're not comfortable going on a podcast, that would be absolutely fine as well. But I'm assuming the content will actually be around his time in North America, his linkage with NARSA and the like as well. So if you're interested in providing a wee bit more background to that, and maybe even had a chance to meet the great man himself back in the day when he was over here, please do get in touch and we'll pass it on to this fella, and we'll hopefully make some magic happen on that. Second one, still no takers on my bacon suit question from the last couple of pods that we've done. I see, I don't know if everybody's winding me up, or maybe, just maybe, I made it up inadvertently, because I wouldn't make something up like that, and I tried to convince the Careys of that when I was telling them that after a few beers a couple of weekends ago. But if you had a bacon suit on, or you've seen some of the bacon suit on at a convention, please get in touch, please. Okay, we also get contacted by Joe Morrison, who's the curator of, not creator, the curator of Rangers Museum, and he was asking for some help and input into information about the NARSA membership. And I know that he's keen to put some sort of exhibit on about Rangers' global reach, which is absolutely brilliant, and of course we are heavily involved in the global reach of that as well. Now, it does bring a wee bit of a historical hangover to the fore for us, for NARSA, in terms of our ability to discuss membership numbers and the like. And what I mean by that is, historically, I think before my time, it used to be the number of members dictated how much you would pay for the TV feed. It wasn't always Rangers TV back in the day. It was various satellite providers, and way before that it was a video coming a couple of weeks after the actual games and things like that. But when we had a live provider, as I mentioned, the numbers, the membership numbers would then equate to, you know, what you would pay for the games. So what I think that did was created a wee bit of angst from the clubs, created a wee bit of maybe dis or mistrust between the clubs and NARSA, and maybe NARSA and the clubs as well. Again, the caveat is I wasn't here then. But all that to say that today, as we sit here, at any time we try and get involved with any new sponsors or any new people that want to in some way become involved with the association, they ask, what's our membership? And I have to provide a wee bit of a convoluted conversation to say, you know, we have 30 plus active clubs right now, X amount take the RTV package, and this is where they're geographically located. And then they say, but how many members have you got? And I say, short answer is, I don't know. And I would love to get beyond that, quite honestly, and get to a point where we would actually have accurate membership numbers, so that we can have a wee bit of strength in volume and things like that. So maybe that's something, I don't know that we'll do that between now and the AGM, but maybe something for the new communications director and to take on board and after the election, which I'll talk about in a wee bit here. But anyway, back to Joe. He did ask for some information on that. I did ask him for a chat, just so that he can let me know specifically what the actual ask is, and then we'll figure it out from there. And I just checked my email before I started recording earlier, and I got an email from him saying, yes, let me know when you're free. So I'll make a point of trying to call him this week, get to understand what the ask is, and then see where we go from there. So stay tuned for that one as well. And hot on the heels of ERSA announcing their convention in Bangkok in July, our friends at ERSA, the European Ranger Supporters Association, announced their own convention in Rhodes, Greece. And that's at the Rhodo Palace Hotel in September of this year. I'm not 100% sure of the dates. I didn't see that when I noticed the announcement coming out, but I'll try and find out a wee bit more about that. So any blue noses out there that have desires to travel and do some rangersing off the UK shores, you now have a great choice if you want to go and celebrate all things Rangers. Away from the motherland, you've got Toronto with us in June, you've got Bangkok in July, and then you have Rhodes in Greece in September. That's not bad, is it? It's great to have a bit of choice. You know, I have to say, I would really love to get to go to an ERSA or an NARSA convention one of these days, and I'm going to put that on my bucket list. I end up just so conventioned out after the conventions that I just need a breather, and then you know, the thought of kind of getting geared up to go travel and go to another one ends up being kind of down the list a wee bit. But I'm going to kind of save my pennies and see if I can make that happen. I'd love to just go see how they do it, provide any help, guidance, support, and most importantly have a party when we're there as well. On the convention for this week, I can officially confirm, folks, that it is 100 days and 14 weeks until Toronto Midtown do what they're going to do and host the biggest bash of the Overseas Rangers year. This is going to 100 days. It's going to be double figures next week, of course, and I'll just spoil the surprise. It's going to be 93 days next week and 13 weeks. It's getting closer and closer and closer. And the hotel and room tickets are still on sale, but you know, they're not as selling as well as I was hoping at this particular stage in proceedings, which I'm sure is down to a variety of factors like the global economic conditions and such. But what I can say that this is materially, from a business perspective, not a good position for NARSA to be in. We have ticket sales already from 15 active NARSA clubs and 2 clubs who are not formally part of NARSA anymore, but were part of the family at some point in the past. So 15 active clubs is essentially 50% of our active membership, so that's a worry. Now, I know that typically the Ontario conventions endure slower ticket sales until, I'll say the last minute. It's not literally the last minute, but until later in the day when people kind of make up their minds about whether they'd like to go and attend or not. But what I can tell you is that makes for a very fraught planning process for your NARSA exec, and it doesn't allow us the freedom and flexibility to plan the event as wholly and that's holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, not the other type of holy. It doesn't allow us to plan as wholly as we would like. And I think about these things, like, because I'm biased, because I'm involved in the organising, of course, but like a concert, if you're going to a concert to see your favourite band or artist or whatever it is, you don't sit around and then decide at the last minute whether you're planning on going and then buy your hotel room and all that sort of thing, you know, and then wait to the last minute to buy your actual ticket for the concert. You do it the opposite way around. You buy a ticket for the concert, then make all your travel arrangements. You know, that's not what seems to happen when we have the Ontario conventions. But the way that our budgeting works for the conventions is we put together a projected attendee number. We then go through the list of things that need to be paid, you know, entertainment monies, for example, flute band donation, medallions or other gifts, VIP guest travel and accommodation, the banquet meal costs, etc. You know, there's a lot more than that. And then what our projected income would be based on ticket sales, based on the projected numbers, and you know, with other inputs as well of, you know, raffles and auctions and t-shirt sales and anything else like that. Then that helps us establish the actual event ticket pricing as well. So a bit of a process. So that's notwithstanding the commitment that we have to make contractually to the hotel in terms of our room attrition and the minimum spend on food and beverage, which, as I mentioned, is all contracted in. So there is a science to it, I guess, is what I'm saying. And anybody who's organised events would know the legwork that has to go into these things. Now, when we go to a tier 1 city like Toronto, the costs are typically a wee bit more expensive than other cities that we do visit, and that's just the way it is. It's always been that way. So when we started our planning a couple of years ago for Toronto for this year, in advance, and then anticipated a number, then we don't meet that number by quite some way, we end up in a very nervous situation for the planning committee, and a real possibility that we will run the convention at a significant loss to the association, which, you know, not to sound like Dr. Doom, is essentially the beginning of a going out of business plan. And I'm not interested in that at all. And I'm sure our membership are not interested in that either. So all that to say, if you're waiting until the last minute to purchase your tickets, well, that's completely your right, and a flexibility we'd love to be in a strong position to support. You're also really hampering our abilities to plan the event properly, and the knowledge that the number of guests we need to accommodate are actually going to be there as well. Imagine it, if you will, it's a party at your own house. No one RSVPs until the day before, and then you have no idea how much space you're going to need, what rooms you're going to occupy, what food or booze you're going to get, and other pertinent logistics. That's our reality right now. So what this means thus far, with 100 days to go, is I'm going to have to go back to the hotel with the contract in hand to see about reducing our contracted commitments for hotel rooms and banquet space. If we can reduce the liability numbers, we will, and the event will just be a smaller version of what we were originally thinking, which is kind of incredible when you think about the hotel we've got and the location we've got and some of the fun things that we have planned as well. But needs must, and we'll do whatever we need to do to protect the association. And what that might mean for guests who are on the fence is that possibly you might miss out if you were planning on purchasing in May. If we can reduce our numbers and get us to a spot where it's a smaller, more intimate and ultimately sold out event, that's exactly what we'll do. I appreciate that the club isn't doing as well as we anticipate either this season, and I talked a wee bit about that on last week's pod, and that affects, you know, quite frankly, all of our motivations concerning Rangers. But we have a NARSA business to run, and we need to do what's best for us. So all that to say, if you're waiting, just please know the implications of that and the risk that you run potentially of missing out if we get a reduction in numbers. And that's not a threat. That's not, as I said, to be Dr. Doom or anything like that. It's just a reality of where we're at. For those who have purchased, thank you very, very much. For those who haven't, a wee gentle reminder that the tickets this year are 225 Canadian for all 3 nights, and you can go to the NARSA website and procure them on there. So, to entice a wee bit of camaraderie, maybe a wee bit of competition, we are going to actually have a competition to run for NARSA member clubs only, and only NARSA member clubs who have purchased tickets already. So there are 15 that we have a 2-night stay at the Sheraton Toronto Central, which is the host hotel, of course, up for grabs for one lucky winner. Yes, you will get to stay at the hotel for 2 nights of the convention on NARSA, and we're going to do a random draw of members from clubs who have purchased event tickets to date. This week we will be contacting each club to confirm who've confirmed ticket prices with more details of this special prize giveaway. So please stay tuned for this one. If you know for a fact your club has not purchased any tickets, this week would be the time to do it, so you get the opportunity to maybe win that room for 2 nights. And yeah, that's pretty cool. A wee bit of camaraderie and kind of boost the profile a wee bit as well. Another reminder that we do have the one-stop shop packages on sale at theconvention.com, and that's with Rosie Ratter and her team over at the Holiday and Flight Centre, and you'll get to see what they have to offer. They did have to relinquish some of the held flight seats last week, but they can still do a full package for you as well, so don't worry about that. They have access to hotel rooms, they have access to event tickets and things like that, so yeah, go and check that out as well. So from another guest perspective, just a reminder that we do have Mark Haitley and Willie Henderson confirmed, and we are working on a couple more. Like I mentioned earlier, our ticket sales go directly to our VIP confirmations, so it's kind of chicken and the egg. So the less tickets we sell, the less VIPs we can afford to bring over. I am hopeful, I know I keep saying this over the last couple of weeks, but by next week we'll have our VIP list locked and loaded and fully confirmed. It hasn't been for the want of trying. The lots and lots and lots of work has gone in the background, and we've had, from a number of genuine Rangers royalty as we try and find the right mix and blend of guests that will provide a great guest experience for our attendees this year. But for this year, it just, for whatever reason, seems to be a wee bit more difficult to pin down than in previous years. But as I mentioned, definitely not for the want of trying. We did, however, send over the invites to Rangers Football Club yesterday, and that was in the hope to be able to confirm who from the club will be joining us. Typically, we always invite the chairman, we invite our managing director, Stuart Robertson, James Bisgrove, the communications fellow, Alistair, Greg Marshall as the supporters liaison officer, and then we always invite the captain, the manager, and we typically invite the assistant manager, but I don't think we have one, do we? Like, it's just a series of first team coaches, so I'm not 100% sure on that. So I just put Michael Beale's name and James Tavernier in there as well. So hopefully we'll get those confirmations. Stuart Robertson did email me back tonight, actually not long before I came on the call, came on the recording, sorry, and said he'll canvass the team over the next week or so and get back to us. And we did put an end of March deadline on that as well. On other business, I did say for the last couple of weeks that I would do a wee bit of a recap of the general meeting. I can't find my notes anywhere. I don't know. I can't blame Flair Airlines for this one. I think I maybe have misplaced them. But we had the typical agenda where we have the approval of the minutes, the correspondence, the President's report, Treasurer's report, RTV report, the other directors' reports, and then a convention update. And we went through that. There wasn't really anything massively material coming from the meeting. As I mentioned, after the week after, I guess the pod a couple of days after the general meeting, it was very, very well attended, which was so brilliant to see, because usually these are kind of the less attended ones. And we went through basically the updates that we had. And one of the bigger updates from this time would be just a change in, what would you say, strategy from RTV after this season is done, in that we're not going to be working under the same sort of proviso that we are right now. Yeah, so what that basically means is RTV have gotten to the point where the business model they have with NARSA isn't as sustainable as it used to be. You know, we do the annual survey, how much can you afford? The numbers are going down and down and down, and it gets to a point where there's not a kind of break even on the RTV side. So myself and Alan have a bit of work to do between now and the end of the season to canvass the clubs, see what their plans are for going forward. There's going to be a bit of flexibility in terms of the offerings that RTV can offer, but I don't see the benefit of NARSA being involved in those directly anyway. You know, so we might save on a wee bit of admin time and things like that. More to follow on that when we know more, but that was probably the bigger update that Alan had provided for that. Lorraine took us through some of the offerings that we've got, specific more so on this occasion to the convention from a sponsorship and marketing perspective, and there wasn't too much to talk about on the communication front. And then Billy and Andy Burnett had taken us through updates on the 2023 convention, which I give you every week here as well. We also paid condolences while we're in Ontario to Terry Zellis as well. Once we get the minutes out there'll probably be some other bits and pieces. I remember there being some questions, I can't quite remember right now, but yeah, that was the main thing, was the RTV, or certainly the main thing I can remember, the main poignant thing that's going to generate some work for us between now and the AGM. And talking about the AGM, the 2023 AGM is an election year this year, folks. So the election process is, if you are interested in a position, all of the positions are open right now, apart from my current position, the president position. The president position, you need to be on the NARSA executive for 2 full years leading up to the election. And every other position that we have, all the directors and the secretary and the treasurer are all up for grabs if you feel like you would like to get involved. And if you would like to get involved, please by all means get in touch with myself or the NARSA secretary Sandra Hawthorne, or anyone on the executive for that matter, and you can go and see what the job descriptions look like on the NARSA website under the Constitution. That's there under the Constitution. It details each of the roles that are there, and the process to follow is you need to be nominated by a club, you need to be seconded by another club. If there are more than one nomination for a position, it will go to election at the AGM. And if there are not within the 2-month window, so you have to have your nomination in by close of business day Eastern Standard Time on the 2-month date prior to the AGM. Sorry, my apologies, got a wee bit distracted by something on my screen there. And so that would be the 17th of April would be your deadline for that. But if you just want to have a chit chat around any of the positions or anything like that, then by all means get in touch. rangersscc@hotmail.com. That's rangersscc@hotmail.com. 2 S's, 2 C's, and I'm happy to chat through it any which way you would like, and more than happy to get more folks interested in doing that sort of thing. on the communication front for this week, we do just a couple. Just one's a wee bit of a reiteration. Last week I had said that we were going to have Ian Hogg and Martin Ramsey on to talk about their respective books, and I just didn't get a chance to do that this past week. This past week, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a blue moon or a full moon or some other sort of moon, but it was a bizarre week, and not in a good way. There was lots of silly stuff that happened that just consumed a lot of time and energy and effort on both the professional and the personal front. So I didn't quite get to that last week. I'll endeavour to do that this week for sure, because I'd like to give these guys a bit of a plug. Both guys are great guys. But just one last thing. I know we're running a wee bit long, because I just wanted to give you a wee bit of an overview of the pains that we're having right now on the convention front. I don't know if you've seen it today. Hugh Serrell had posted on the NARSA WhatsApp group today the This Is Ibrox podcast, which was a video podcast of an interview with Stuart Gibson, who's the third largest stakeholder, or shareholder, sorry, in the club, and a good Paisley lad like myself. Us guys, we're just dominating the world, really, aren't we? And it was a good speaker, good interesting story. The first kind of 20 minutes or so was more about him and his history, and then the last 10 or so was about his involvement with the Rangers and how it all came about. Quite funny how he got involved in the beginning and things like that. But a couple of kind of key poignant things was he talked about Ross Wilson. I know Ross Wilson's getting a very hard time right now, and he said he's doing an excellent job with the limited resources that he has, which is an interesting thing, because there seems to be more and more calls these days that Ross Wilson is not doing an excellent job, and he's not doing his job. We don't know what Ross Wilson's job description is, so to be fair, until we know that, then we don't really have a basis of understanding whether he's doing a good or a bad job on that. We look at the transfers, we look at the players that we're signing, we look at the players that we're pushing on through this player trading model, and we've had a couple of successes and we've had more than a fair share of failures as well. So if that's his only job, which I know it's not, then I don't know that he's doing an excellent job. So it really just depends on what the measuring stick is. And he also mentioned they brought back up the Sydney Cup, the Australia thing, and he tried to explain. I know what he was trying to say. He was trying to explain, look, James Bisgrove's job is to scour the world for commercial opportunities for Rangers, present them to the board, and then the board decide what they want to do with that. There's £3 million being dangled in front of Rangers. Rangers agree that they were going to do that. Didn't really take any fan sentiment into account, and we got out of that with the skin of our teeth through some contractual condition breaking from the organisers. So we got lucky there, but left a bad taste in the mouth. But what he said about James was he played a blinder. That's his words, not mine, in terms of actually presenting that, and then offered up, if we had a 156 at that point, we would have happily said the team can go over to Australia and beat Celtic one more time. I don't know anybody that would have felt that way. Certainly the people in my circle would not have felt that way. For all the reasons that we've talked about before, it just was a bad idea and not something that we'd be interested in doing. But just interesting to see him. As I say, good speaker. If you get a chance to see it, you can YouTube it. This is Ibrox podcast interview with Stuart Gibson, and it said like part 1 on the little kind of blurred part. So maybe there's a part 2, 3 and 4 or something like that to come. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that will do it for this week. I've got one more thing to talk about on a recent meeting that we had with Greg Marshall, but I'll leave that to next week since we're kind of pushing time. Just one last thing here in terms of the convention, if you don't mind me going back a wee bit here. This is the last time I get an opportunity to mention the fundraiser. That's this coming Sunday, and that's March the 12th, and that's a 2 p.m. kick-off at Toronto Number 1, which is in Ellesmere Road in Scarborough. And you can buy your tickets online. You can go there and get that organised. The magazine is also out for sale as well. You can transfer your details to the magazine to tmrsc1998@outlook.com and get that booked. The specifications and stuff like that have been sent to all clubs. And I am told that Toronto Midtown will also be in a position to announce the football this week, and of course the golf is on. In fact, actually, I want to talk about the golf a wee bit here. You can get all the golf details on the NARSA 2023 Facebook page, or by emailing the tmrsc1998@outlook.com, and they'll get back to you. But I did want to clarify one thing with the golf. When it was announced a wee while back, I talked up the course and what you would get for the day and stuff like that. And then I jokingly mentioned that just one guy on the NARSA WhatsApp group had said the course was crap. His words, not mine. And then at the time, I likened it to the fact that he probably had a bad round and blamed the course it was a joke, and in no way whatsoever reflects the quality of the course or the offering or the Toronto Midtown folks and the effort that they're putting in on that. If there is some sort of thought out there that Gary said the course is crap, then I'll dispel that right now, because that's categorically not what I said, and you can go back into our archives and check it out if you like. I'll save you the time. I didn't say that. We don't ever strive to do anything crap at NARSA, period. And if anyone thinks that I have such a sway to say something is one way or another and that would influence a purchasing decision by someone else, you're giving me way too much credit. I can assure you that it's a great course. It comes very highly recommended, and it's going to be a brilliant day for everyone involved. So like the event tickets, if you're waiting on purchasing, you're not really helping with the planning for the local club as well. So I'd urge you to get the golf booked as well. But yeah, I just wanted to dispel that little bit of a rumour there as well. Sorry, I should have done that earlier when we got to the convention stuff. Anyway, way over time. I'm going to have to put my timesheet in for 10 extra minutes for this week. That'll do it for this week, my friends. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and please do share it with whomever you think might enjoy it. Until next week, here's to continuing our stellar run in the league and to progressing in the Scottish Cup to keep our silverware hopes alive for this season. Until next week, take care of yourself and all the very best, folks, okay? Cheerio.